like it's kind of flat, and then I put the move tool, like I clicked the move one, and I clicked on the drawing, and then like so I could see that it's actually moving, and then it's supposed to have get like little dashes, and I moved it up on the blue line.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Let me run through that once more again too. Okay, so I've drawn my box, but it's underneath this plane right here. So I'm going to turn on X-ray mode by going to View, Face Style, and X-ray. And then it'll pop up so I can see the box underneath there. And I did some undos to get there, so my rectangle isn't complete. I'm going to finish with the line tool. I'm going to finish my last piece of that rectangle. Now I'll select it. And then M for the move tool. And I'm going to start moving it up. And I'm looking for those dotted blue lines. That means I know I'm going in the vertical direction. Or if you hit the arrow, it will force it to go up in the vertical direction. And I'm going to move it 5 feet just to make sure it's clear of everything under there. And then go back to View and Face Style and turn X-ray off. And I should have my rectangle above, floating above the plane right there. Okay. Now I want to make this rectangle see-through so that I can scale it. So I can scale the background image a little bit better. So under Materials over here, I'm going to click on the translucent glass gray material and paint bucket that material onto here. And then I still have the whole thing selected, so when I hit G, it will make it into a component. And I'll click Create. And now it's all a component.
Wait, what? Wait, what?
Where did I lose you? Did you get the clear material on it?
No, which material? Okay, which is it?
Okay, so I've got
No, I know where it is. So I got the materials, glass and mirrors, right?
Right. Glass and mirrors, and I'm choosing translucent glass gray.
Oh, okay, got it.
And then I click on just in the face of that material.
Got it.
Select the entire thing just by dragging a bigger square than the object itself there, and then the letter G for component.
I got it.
Great.
Oh, wait, what happened? Oh.
It's still there?
Yeah, it made, okay.
You should only be doing this thing for the component.
Yeah, I had exit, so like, when I make the square bigger than the square, okay, never mind, got it. It had it had grouped the picture as well.
Right, so you want to select from the left to the right, and then it will only pick what's inside. If you select from the right to the left, it'll grab the other parts as well. So
okay, thank you.
Yeah, when you're doing a selection in SketchUp, left to right will only select something that's completely contained in the selection box. Okay, we got that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to select the image itself, this Maricopa County Assessor's Office image, and I'm going to come to the Scale tool over here on the left. Click on the Scale tool, and now, kind of like in Illustrator, I have these scale tabs right here. And because this is SketchUp, we are not going to be perfectly precise. We're just getting it close. So I'm going to get it, I'm kind of shifting it back and forth until I get it about the right width. And then I'll switch to the Move tool and scoot this right there. And the letter T should take you to the top, should give you a top view. I think that's a pre-built hotkey. And that lets me put it pretty close. And you'll see here that the even the Maricopa sites, there's a little bit of, it's a little bit off. It's rarely exactly lined up with the real world dimensions, but we're just trying to get close. So I'll put it right about there. And then if I look at my, so now I've got to scoot both of these over so they line up with this image right here. And because there's a street next to it, that's easy to do. So I grab both of these. I'm selecting from the left to the right. Click on the move tool. Now I'm going to move these until, what I'm trying to line up right here are the streets. So we line up center, we line up Serine, and we're close enough for SketchUp work. Remember, if you're actually doing this in the real world, you hire a surveyor to give you the real units. But this gets us close enough. We can get the shadows, and then when we do renderings, you can see some of the context.
Is there a way that you can move, like once you've selected with the scale tool, because it's just letting me like expand it and then decrease it. Is there a way you can move the whole frame? Do you have to hit M or something?
Yeah, you hit M.
Okay.
So you click scale, you shift it around a little bit, then you hit M to actually get it in the end.
Gotcha.
And if I was to guess, I'd say maybe I'm still a little bit large, a little bit big on my image. So I'm going to scoot the scale down just a little bit more. And then M, move it around. Okay. So once I'm happy with the everything, I'm going to go back to the tags, which again are the layers. And I want to put, I'm going to create a new layer by hitting this plus sign, and I'll call it Maricopa Map. And the way you change layers, so I've got the Maricopa Map selected, it's got the line around it. The way you change layers in SketchUp is you come up here to Entity Info, click this little triangle to open up Entity Info, and then here under Tag, you switch it to the layer that you want. So now it's on the Maricopa Map layer. And now if I click this eyeball off and on, then that map appears or disappears. Okay, now I know it's in the right spot. Then I'm going to select the map and right click on it. And let's see. Looks like they've changed another something. You used to be able to lock it. Let's see, this one's letting me lock. I have to open up the group to do it. Okay, so I'm trying to lock this map right here. And it seems to be, sometimes when you import something into SketchUp, it has some properties that aren't what we want to use. And so I'm going to click on the Maricopa map and I'm going to explode it. And now it's blown it up into just, you know, 4 lines with the face in between them. Now I'm going to hit G to make it a component again. And now when I click on it, it gives me the lock option. So it's just an attribute when you import something they don't want to give you all the abilities to do stuff for, I don't know why, but you explode it and then make it back into a component, and then you can lock it again. And now it has all the properties that I want. Now it's got this red outline. So now I can't accidentally move it around on the screen. And same with my terrain model that I brought in. This is already locked. You don't want to move this around because this is exactly where the real world dimensions are. Although you could click on it, you could right click on it, you could click unlock, and then you could move this terrain around, but we're not doing that today. Just so you know it's there. Okay, now you'll see as I'm scrolling around, as I'm spinning around, my Maricopa map is sometimes it's sitting right on top. Those two planes are right on top of each other. So as I move it around, you'll see sometimes it kind of disappears and sometimes it reappears. So I'm going to select it again. I'm going to unlock it. And now I'm going to move it up 1 foot from above the terrain map that I brought in. And now when I move it around, nope, still doing it. Let's try that again. Move, arrow, 1 foot, enter. And now as I move it around, it doesn't give me those lines. And then I will lock it again. Right click and lock. Okay, was there a question?
How far did you move it up?
I just moved it 1 foot. So it's now, they're in line with each other. It's just a foot higher than this base plate under here.
How did you make sure that they were, I guess, like perfectly overlap? Because I'm looking at my 2 overlapping planes in X-ray view, and they're still, so the 2 rectangles that I drew, when I directly aligned those, everything else is misaligned. Or is there like specific measurements you did or like specific value you typed?
Well, so there's 2 things going on here. You have some real world units, which is what you're drawing in SketchUp. Mm-hmm. And then you just have some images that SketchUp doesn't really know what the images are or what the scale is. So you have to determine that. So we scaled this image of the Maricopa County Assessor's Office to get it close. But we don't have to be perfect because SketchUp isn't designed to be perfect. Mm-hmm. And then I brought I was just aligning the street edges here and here to get it close. They're probably right. Like if you turned on X-ray mode, they probably won't be sitting exactly on top of each other. Mm-hmm. They're off by a little bit. And it could also be that the shadows of the day are a little bit different. So all of this stuff, this is all satellite data and it's all been processed a little bit. So you lose a little bit of precision in this portion of what we're doing. Once we start just typing in SketchUp units, it's going to be just as precise as AutoCAD as anything else. But the images that you bring in are never exactly precise. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, so now we've got our plane here. We've got our site defined right here. And we've got a little bit of information over there about it. So now we're going to say, let me go back to my form-based code. Here's our form-based code, and we are Serine and center. This is our lot right here. And which is, I come over here and I say, okay, it's T3 neighborhood, T3N. So that's gonna, now I can go here in the form-based code and I can find what my T3N allows me to do. So I'll scroll down into here. And not very far down is T3N, T3 neighborhood, provides a walkably, predominantly single-family neighborhood. Da, da, da. And some of the other T neighborhood elements, the other T elements. But what we want to get to is the T3 neighborhood standards right here, T3 neighborhood standards. And then you see sort of one of the issues I have with Mesa is Mesa just thinks it's like, Mesa planners think that Mesa is a dump. So they find this kind of old house, to give you an example of what T3 neighborhood is supposed to look like, with like power lines in the front of it, and like an old kind of weird low power line, and there's a for sale sign on it. And like I want, this is for you guys for the future, I want these documents to be inspirational and people to be like, oh, sweet, I want to do that. I don't want it to be like, oh, dumpy old place for sale with power lines in front of it. So you have to be the generation that makes the documents inspirational. If nothing else from this class, that's what I want out of you guys. Especially if you work for Mesa. If you work for somewhere else and you're making it worse than Mesa, I won't stop you from doing that. Okay, so there's some things that are allowed in the T3 neighborhood, but let's scroll down here. And this tells me setback rules, which I'm sure you guys have encountered before. You have to have a 15-foot minimum, 25-foot max setback, side street 10 and 20. So I'm going to put this down here. The other way. It's disappearing, but I have two screens, so I'm actually looking at it down there. And now I can say, okay, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'll call that layer envelope for building envelope. And I'm going to click now to switch to the layer that you want. If you want to be drawing on a particular layer, you click right over here. There's a little pencil here on the corner. You click that, and now I will be drawing in the envelope layer. So I have my pencil tool selected, and I look at my thing and it says I need to have a 15-foot minimum setback from the front. So I'm going to start at the front line here and come back 15 feet and then draw the line all the way across. This is my front 15-foot setback. Then if I look on here again, you'll see it has a 5-foot side setback and main building rear setback of 30 feet or accessory structure of 5. So I'm going to just do 5 and 5 for my side and rear setbacks. So I'm going to start with the pencil tool. I'll start in this corner and come over 5 feet. And then click on that, come back all the way here. And then I'm going to click on that endpoint I just created, come back up 5 feet. Lets me click on that endpoint. I can come over here. And then same thing, I click on it again, come back 5 feet, click on that endpoint, and then bring it back up to the front. So now I've created my building envelope in that. I'm going to go to the select tool by clicking the space bar. And then these little extra 5-foot tails, I'm just going to take these off. Okay, so now I have my site and I have my buildable envelope right in here like this. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to give it translucent glass tinted for color. And then G, I'm going to make it into a component with the letter G. Okay, so now I have the site and we have the setbacks. Okay, let's see if there are any other rules. We come down here, there's some miscellaneous, only one main building and one accessory structure can be built on a lot. Building form, height, main building, 2 stories max. Accessory structure, 1.5 stories max. Ground floor ceiling, 10-foot minimum clear, and upper floor ceilings, 9-foot minimum clear. This is one of the complaints I had to the city. Why are you requiring a 10-foot minimum. I know it's nicer and fancier, but if you live in Arizona, no one's head is up in that top 2 feet or 3 feet of that, and you're air conditioning the entire thing. So I said that they shouldn't have these minimums on it. But they haven't changed that part yet. I've gotten them to change some chunks of the form-based code, but not everything yet. So we don't really have, usually with a building envelope, the third thing you would do is you'd say, okay, I'm allowed to go X number of feet up. And so using the push-pull tool, you would say, oh, there's like, you know, the city of Gilbert, there's a 30-foot height restriction. And so you type in 30 feet, and that would be your thing. And then you know, as long as you're building within this shape, you know it's to code. But form-based code, at least Mesa's form-based code, most of it doesn't have a height restriction. It's by stories. And a story could be 20 feet high, a story could be 40 feet high, a story could be 90 feet high. So there's nothing limiting the height to that. Although they do get mad when you make like 15-foot stories in there, but they can't stop you from doing it. So let's scroll down a little bit more to see what we need. The height, of course, is not important as long as we make the lower one 10 feet, the upper one 9. We've got some encroachment options. So even though they gave us all of these setbacks, they let you do a lot of encroaching. So I think we had a 30-foot setback in the front, but we can actually encroach 10 feet into it if we have the right elements. And on the sides, they gave us a 5-foot setback, but you can actually encroach 2'6". So there's ways of really maxing out, which my clients typically want for multifamily things, really maxing out these things. You just have to make sure that they're a common yard or engaged porch or projecting porch or stoop. They fit those requirements. And then we check and we say, okay, we need parking, 1 parking space per unit. And your parking has to be 50 feet back from the front setback, 20 feet from the side setbacks, or the street side setbacks, or 5 from the other setbacks. And parking access drive width from the front would be a 12-foot. So you'd have to have like a 12-foot driveway coming in along the front. We'll get to that in a little bit. Then there's a bunch of use. You can do churches, you can't do certain things. So that's the end of the T3 neighborhood standards. And then we move on to T4. So the next thing that you do, at least in the form-based code, is you're allowed to do certain types of buildings, and that's in this whole other section, which I'm scrolling to right now. Give it a second to load. Yeah, that's high rise, that's not what we're doing. Come on. Okay, so here's the chart. You've got building types in here. There's carriage house. Ooh, this does not want to. So I'm going to click it. Carriage house, single unit house village, single unit house cottage, bungalow court, duplex. I don't know who made up these words. Townhouse, mansion, apartment, apartment house, courtyard building. And as you go down here, you look at the type of zone, and we're looking for T3. And so mansion apartment is T3, but apartment house is not T3. So we have to check and say, okay, well, it looks like we can do mansion apartment. Let's check that one. It's probably the biggest, and he wants to max out his land right here. So I'm going to come down to mansion apartment. There's carriage house. See, again, they're like, look how bad these can look. Duplex, townhouse, mansion apartment. And then I check again. T3 is allowed for mansion apartment style. And you're allowed to do medium structure that consists of 3 to 6 side-by-side or stacked dwelling units, typically with one shared entry or individual entries along the front. It's basically what I want to do. So this is the part that's kind of annoying. You have to come to this section, and then this tells you what size your buildings can actually be. So I'm going to put this over on the side so we can look at them at the same time. And I'm going to shrink my SketchUp down just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so height, building size, and massing. There's a main body, which you're allowed 48 feet wide and 36 feet deep. So, and I always check these, okay, the C and the D. So 48 feet wide and 36 feet deep. So I'm going to click on the pen tool, and here I'm going to make a new tag, which I'll call building. And click on the pencil to move it down to that tag. And then I'm just going to start at my front setback, and I'm allowed to go 48 feet wide. But my, if you look right here, because my property is 50 feet wide, I can only go 40. So I'm just going to take it to 48. If I was a wider lot, I could go to 48, but I can only go to 40. So I go 40 that way and 36 feet back, and then come in and fill in that first one. And I got these little lines. That's good. It means I've got my box right where I want it. Now you're allowed to have a secondary wing back in here. That's this E and this F, which is 30 by 30. So I'm going to draw a secondary wing starting back here, 30 feet and 30 feet, and then back to there. So I have my part A building, my part B building, and then I'm allowed to have an accessory structure, which is G and H, or it can be the accessory structure you see, you can have it be vertical or horizontal. So I'm going to draw this on my back setback, and I'm going to go, G is 48 feet by 30 feet, and bring it back like that. So this is my kind of my floor plate. This is where I'm allowed to build according to this form-based code right here. Now I'm going to check over here and see main entrance location has to be in the front. That's fine. And then there's some private open space requirements. This is the most tragic thing. You're only required to have 100 square feet of open space, which is like a little 10-foot by 10-foot square of places for kids to play and stuff. Almost, I don't know, I kind of laugh at it. I'm like, that's almost a joke. Like, you should still try to maximize it somehow, but that's what they require. Okay, so I have these spaces here, and now I'm going to use the push-pull tool. And I'm just going to assume, if you remember, it said you had to have a minimum of 10 feet on the bottom and 9 feet on the top floor. So I'm going to push-pull. I'll go 10 feet and then assume 1 foot for the floor thickness, and then 9 feet and a foot for the ceiling thickness. So it's going to be 21 feet. is basically what's allowed, unless I wanted to do bigger floors. So I could do 21 feet with that one, and with that one. This one was a 4.5, which again, I don't even know what that means. So I'm gonna make it 15 feet, just so that I remember, oh, it's not exactly the same. And I'm gonna have to go sit down with a planner and decide what we can do, okay? So we have these 3 different masses right here. Someone say something?
Yeah, what was the height of the first 2 again?
I made them, say 21 feet. Yeah, 21 feet high. So that's the minimum. You know, there's no height restrictions, so I could make it 80 feet high if I wanted. Although I think there's something in here that says you can't be more than a certain amount taller than the lot next to you or something like that. That rule's in here somewhere. I don't remember where that is. It might be on the other one. This is the part that's confusing. You have to keep flipping back and forth between these 2 things. Apparently the Flagstaff form-based code just has a single section with all of the information in it. And Nana Apia, the planning director, is trying to get Mesa to adopt a more similar code, similar to the Flagstaff one. Okay, so we've just got a minute left, but the last thing I would do here, I'm gonna go to colors named. And then what I did on mine, if you look at the version here, I kind of cut them up into, okay, we want something to be about 720 square feet. And so I made these apartments 20 feet wide, I think specifically so that you could get a garage underneath them. But we just kind of further refined that. So you could do that here. You could say, okay, I have this front piece, which is 30 feet right here. I'm going to come, well, maybe try it this way. We'll do a 15-foot one. So I'll come here to the midpoint, across to the midpoint, and down. And then I'm going to come to colors named up here. And then when I do these charts, I like to do a big, bold primary color sort of deal. So I'll get a yellow for this front guy and maybe a blue for this guy. And then if you click on it and look up here at the entity info, it tells you your square footage, 720 square feet. And you have these leaders over here where you can click on them and it'll tell you the size if you just click on the face. So that's this little button over here. So you can tell what it is by looking at the entity info on that face, and then the leaders over here can give you the actual size. Or like this one. See, this one's 900 square feet. That gives you an idea of the size that you're doing. Okay. What we'll do on Wednesday is what we didn't do here. So currently there's no way to park this site. So we'll start chopping up some of the bottom stuff on Wednesday, and then we'll talk about plants and some other things and cars. Any other questions?
Could we go over this again on Wednesday, the part where you
Sure.
made the building?
Yeah, and I will, I was recording this, so if the recording works properly, I will upload it onto YouTube, and you should be able to do everything that we did.
Oh, okay.
Following along with that as well.
Okay, that should work too. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody.
I have another question, though not
Sure.
about what we covered. So just, I guess, FYI, my SketchUp says that it expires on April 30th. So I don't know if like you
So
were planning.
We have to finish before April 30th.
I don't know if everyone's, I mean, I downloaded it on the same day. So
Yeah,
I think that is the,
everyone's probably will. We'll see. I'll ask because there's a license that ASU has. Let me see if they can extend that license to your home computers. Let me ask
Okay.
I'll ask the other staff about that and see if there's a way to extend that out.
Also, our AutoCAD like trials should, I don't know if we're going to need it for the rest of the semester, but they're ending soon as well. I think mine
Okay.
said I had 10 days left.
Okay, thanks for telling me that. Let me ask the ASU.
Okay.
I'm sure every college in the planet is having this problem right now with the quarantine. So let me ask the higher ups and see the right way to do that.
Okay, and also I didn't see that we had to turn in the AutoCAD thing last week, so I'm just going to turn it out. Did we did you want it as a DWG file, or did you want us to like export it to
Just
something?
keep it as a DWG for now.
Okay,
That's fine.
yeah, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.